Okay. Howdy, friends. It's us again, Winder Lyons and Eddie Stone.
Hello, Winder. Hello, everyone.
So today we are going to be discussing, I think, the last of our untalked about product line, our two energy products, the Boost and the Green Energy. And why don't you give us a little bit of why do we have two, and how are they the same? How are they different? And what's the skinny here, Bubs?
Well, when I think about these two, and I love all aspects of our line, but these are kind of like the wind beneath your wings sort of thing, quite literally, right? There's a national commercial about an energy drink that says it gives you wings. I think there's some truth to the right kind of energy product in that regard. So we have two products fundamentally because the right kind of energy products have been shown to not only have a real positive impact on a person's day, mood, energy level, the ability to concentrate. And my gosh, with all the distractions in the modern world and all of the chemicals and stressors and stresses, I think that's important. And I think it's important to rely on something with nutritional capacity beyond, say, a cup of coffee, right? Which is what we've done here. And so it's important and it's high demand. You're definitely talking about something that the vast majorities of adults in the developed part of the world, they use products like this. And in the undeveloped parts of the world, they use plant material such as beech nut and others, that sort of do these kinds of things, but obviously with some sort of different effects. And so it's a big demand and it's needed. And if you talk about somebody that's trying to control their weight, can be hugely important at giving them that edge that they need to sort of resist snacking or excess eating, and it can have an impact on metabolism. In terms of why go ahead.
No, wait. I need a little clarification on that one. So it's going to help you control your cravings?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Particularly the adaptogenic herbs that you find in the Boost. And probably not what you would call an adaptogenic herb, but the chocolate, the theobromine in the chocolate has been shown in clinical research to help to curb appetite. So, chocolate, we could do a whole show on chocolate absent the sugar, get rid of the sugar that you find when chocolate's in candy. It's just a tremendous amount of energetic qualities and help in this regard. So, yeah, it's phenomenal.
Well, that helps.
Yeah, and part of the reason why it's in the transformation pack, and we'll talk about that, but to your point about why too, the one thing we recognize is that we have audience members, customers that don't want to use caffeine for whatever reason. It may be a health concern, it may be a religious issue. So whatever it is, we want to make sure we give them a product that they can substitute. It's not a one-to-one substitution, but it's a powerful exchange if Boost isn't what you're looking for, in terms of something with caffeine in it. Then you've got access to the Green Energy that doesn't have caffeine. And frankly, I use both, and we can get into that when we get into the Q&A section, but they both can be quite complementary because the mechanisms of action are completely separate.
Okay. Well, how much caffeine is in the Boost?
So a serving size of Boost is 3 capsules, right? So that's 3 capsules. So if you're taking 3 at once, that's approximately 130 milligrams of caffeine. And to give you a frame of reference, that's probably like anywhere from, say, 9 to 10 ounces of black drip coffee from Starbucks. And so that to give you sort of a frame of reference, if you're talking, and Starbucks is a little caffeine hyped, right? The beans they use and the way they roast their beans. And this would be true of most coffee shops, probably going to have a little more caffeine than if you're making it home. And so if a person's making Maxwell House or Folgers or something along those lines, a traditional ground coffee at home in a drip coffee maker, it's probably more like, say, 12 to 14 ounces. So not quite the traditional 2 cups of 8-ounce coffee is going to be about 130 milligrams. For most people that regularly use caffeine, they can feel that, but that is not a lot. So, for example, a venti coffee that people would get at Starbucks or other places where they refer to it as an XL, which is approximately a 20-ounce cup of coffee. There, because of, say, the Italian beans and other things, those things can bump up to 220, 240, as many as 270 milligrams of caffeine. So that's a significant, for most people, they'd be pretty wired up. And to give you sort of a snapshot of something like a Red Bull, most of those types of products would start at, say, 90 milligrams of caffeine. And if it's something like a Rockstar Energy or some of those other brands or Monsters, those things can go up to 170 to 250. So if you're caffeine sensitive, a person needs to pay attention to that. The other thing to pay attention to is that men metabolize caffeine quite quickly. So for most men, 90 minutes later, sort of the oomph of that caffeine is bypassed their system. Women should just be aware, and they've probably noticed this during the course of their life, it can take them 2.5 to 3 hours to process caffeine. So if caffeine had an impact on their sleep, then they'd want to think about that in terms of how early or late in the evening they were using a product with caffeine in.
Well, I've never taken 3 of the Boost at once. Because I've always been somewhat sensitive, I think, to caffeine, and I get I'm a cheap date. I get wired at the drop of a hat. And I was a little concerned about, because I have atrial fibs, and caffeine can exacerbate that. And so I was kind of concerned about taking it. And because I'm sensitive to caffeine, I thought it was for sure going to interfere with my sleep. And I was convinced. And so it was, so I have, I've talked about this incredible device, this Apple Watch, and charting my sleep. Well, so what I noticed after I started using the Boost, not only did it not interfere, my heart rate at night improved.
I don't think I'm surprised by that.
I was.
Most of the time, if people take a supplement with caffeine in it, it's almost like everything else out there that's conventional. In general, and this goes back to the labeling laws a little bit, you can have caffeine on a label and call it natural caffeine, and perhaps 4, 5, 6, 7% of it's natural. The rest can be synthetic, and you don't have to acknowledge that.
Oh, man.
That synthetic caffeine just hits your body different. The molecular structure is different, and reaction is going to be different, and more of that sort of hypered type of reaction that perhaps you were fearful of is where that would come from. These are all natural sourced caffeines, 100%, no synthetics, water processed. Everything is organic in terms of processing and growing. I mean, all these things. And so it's going to hit your system instead of with a jolt. Nice smooth ride. That's sort of the best way that I can describe it.
I'm beyond impressed with this stuff. It has just been life-changing. I did it in conjunction with the 10-day challenge with the super green juice and the organic super protein, and that was a life-changing experience for me. That 10 days was magnificent. Energy levels coming back, feeling better than I had in so long, losing my cravings for stuff. It's an incredible thing. And I just dove right in with the Boost. I was doing actually about 4 a day during the process. So, but I did them, 2 in the morning with 1 drink and 2 in the other. How important is it to take the Boost 30 minutes before a meal, and what impact would that have?
Well, with something like the Boost, and this is also then going to be true for green energy, and I'll come back and explain the mechanisms of action because they're slightly different. When you take them on an empty stomach, there's just nothing else in the way from a digestion standpoint affecting absorption. So things can absorb more quickly. And I'll tell you, I've got a little routine. Maybe it's not what everybody's down for, but I wake up in the morning and sort of the very first thing I do, I do some stretching, but before I do that, I go in the bathroom and I have 3 green energy and 1 Boost and probably 12 ounces of water. I have a pretty darn good size thing of water. And then I go onto the floor beside my bed and I stretch. And this is just sort of my my habit. It allows a little extra time. The boost affects your metabolism in a couple ways, but it will help to raise your body heat, which also then sort of increases the capacity of the internal furnace, right, to burn calories, to burn fat. And so you sort of start your day by cranking things up in a super gentle way, right? At that pace, I'm probably talking about, say, 40, 45 milligrams of caffeine. So not a whole lot with just the one single capsule. But what I then find, because I also have a practice where I intermittent fast, just like you described when you were talking about your experience on the Transformation Challenge, I'm not finding myself craving things, craving breakfast right first thing. So I got a chance for my body to get up and running before I tackle breakfast. There's also some residual probably from the night before. I am not going to let myself have simple carbohydrates or starches, in my evening hours. If I'm going to cheat on something like that, I try to do it really late afternoon or early evening, so I don't want my blood sugars affected, overnight. And so that's the impact it can have. And remember now, you're not just getting the caffeine. That might be what we're focusing on here, but you've got the Garcinia, which is also going to affect metabolism and energy level. You've got the chocolate, the theobromine in the chocolate, which it helps to stabilize blood sugars, right? All types of benefits coming from there. Then, of course, the green coffee beans. Green coffee beans have a variety of positive impacts beyond just the caffeine. The green tea, the EGCG, and then the ginseng or the erythro root, which is ginseng, and the rhodiola rosea. Now, the rhodiola is interesting because that was a favorite of the Vikings, right? There's some people that say that's what gave the Vikings their Viking, so to speak. Whether that's good or bad, right? Maybe that wasn't a great thing.
I have started carrying an axe. I wondered why.
So that kind of powered them up when they went into battle, so to speak, is the rhodiola. So all of these things are in a complementary mix, but it's quite powerful. Now, this would fall into the category of something that's a stimulant, right? It's going to have a stimulatory impact on the body. Now, because of the adaptogenic herbs, it's also going to smooth out from a nervous tension standpoint. And so maybe if that caffeine in that product winder didn't include those adaptogenic herbs, it may have had an impact on your sleep, right? And we don't know that, but we couple those together because we want that to be a smooth energy ride.
It sure is.
And then when it's time to dial it back in the evening and get your rest, that's the cycle we want to think about. And we think about it the same way we might think about a food mix. The green energy, on the other hand, a different story. Now, green energy has a decaffeinated green tea extract. And so if anybody sees that and says, oh, green tea has caffeine. And so it doesn't have a measurable amount of caffeine. And so I don't know that it would come out to a parts per million zero sum, but it's essentially a caffeine-free product in that regard. We can't measure it, right? So there's no caffeine there in that regard. But then you've got that series of proteolytic enzymes. And the reason you'd want to use that on an empty stomach is just the speed and rate with which they'll then get into the bloodstream, particularly the nitokinase, the serrapeptase, combined with the other proteases, which are basically enzymes that break down proteins. So when we call it a proteolytic enzyme, we mean that it is enzymes that are designed to break down proteins. You consider all the people out there these days having paleo diets or keto diets, which I am, just tell you right up front, not a fan of whatsoever. Not a fan of extreme diets. Number one, there's no question you can fool your body's chemistry to lose weight in a short term, but having done something that you can't sustain long term, everybody regains weight and they regain more. They've not really learned a new set of habits.
I know that drill.
Yeah, you know that drill, right? That's the yo-yo effect. I mean, the truth is, now I'll make sure I come back to the green energy, but you need micronutrients, and some of those micronutrients come from carbohydrates, right? Your fruits and your vegetables in whole form are just rich with micronutrients that you have to live and survive. And so just because you fool your body chemistry and starve it and lose some weight, well, it doesn't give you a long-term solution. You're better off to learn to eat what we call slow carbs, which are things that digest very slowly. They're not high glycemic. They're not starchy, which most of those things are ultra processed with almost no micronutrient count, and lose your weight slower. But, most Americans and people in the developed part of the world, they want an answer tomorrow. And so they'll do these crazy diets, and a year later they're heavier than they were before, and having not learned anything. But getting back to the green energy, once that green energy and once those enzymes get into the bloodstream, they're essentially going to impact metabolized proteins that have clumped around red blood cells. And you can actually take a blood sample while it's still alive and active, put it under a microscope, and you can see a time to do this would say be after a meal. And you can see that those red blood cells, they do look clumped. It's very easy to see, and they move at kind of a slow pace as opposed to what they look like before the meal, or when they're not clumped and what's referred to as sticky from the excess proteins. Well, what the proteolytic enzyme does is it breaks down those excess proteins that have metabolized around that red blood cell. And so now that red blood cell, along with your body's immune system, are going to move more freely, right? So that activity rate is higher, but their surface area that's available then for processing oxygen is higher. And so one of the things that, say, ultra athletes, long distance athletes, people that are really under these long endurance cycles do is they take aggressively proteolytic enzymes, because they also take things like caffeine, but they're concerned with it because as their bodies metabolize muscle, which invariably happens for marathoners and people doing distance things, those proteins from those muscles can actually create this problem. Mm-hmm. Right? And so they use proteolytic enzymes. And so there's other, in Japan, tons of research about serrapeptase and needle-kinase having an impact on a hardened material in the artery wall. And so there's a lot of positive there. And for me, I had exposure 25 or so years ago to a doctor with some real professional experience and scientific research and study on the impact of enzymes. And he thought about enzymes, and I believe in this philosophy as having sort of your body has sort of a finite capacity. Now, you need enzymes for everything. You need them to digest. You need it for tissue repair, whatever it happens to be. Your body makes enzymes, but if all the body's enzymes it's making, if all of those resources are focused on helping you break down or digest cooked and prepared food, and just think for a moment how most people's diets, not only are they mostly eating ultra-processed foods, which be devoid of any type of proteins whatsoever, a lot of the things they're eating from a produce standpoint or meat, which would have some enzymes, is heated, so they're killed off. And so your body's own capacity to produce enzymes then becomes focused as a resource on managing your digestive enzymatic needs, and the rest of your body gets neglected. It doesn't get the same rate of production. So supplementing with enzymes, that's why we include them in things like super green juice, organic super protein, and our other products, is we want to make sure things digest and break down without taxing the body any more than's necessary. And so you use these things 30 minutes before a meal with the green energy particularly, you're going to put this stuff in your gut, in your bloodstream. It's going to help you digest your meal.
So you take 3 in the morning. Do you take it at any other time during the day or just then?
That's all I take under a normal schedule. When I'm on the road, and invariably I've had a meal that I'm not feeling excited about, I have a little bag of them with me, and I use them. And, even sometimes, if you do a meeting at 7:00 at night and you're chatting with everybody and you wind up having a half a quesadilla or something at 10:00 at night, right? I don't rest well when I've got something like that on my stomach. And so I'll use the enzymes, which make a real big impact. So they're sort of my eraser when my dietary habits get off. And it does make a big difference. And I think long-term use is one of the reasons why I just simply do not deal with indigestion. I know that's largely because all my diet is not ultra-processed food and things like that. But enzymes, I know also, because they aid the body in breaking down food, now my body doesn't have to produce excess stomach acids to do that.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
brilliant.
a lot of benefit.
No, that's wonderful. So these two things seemed like I was wondering if you should take them both at the same time. That was a very clear answer as to why. So I'm just changing my routine as of this call, and I'm going to start doing exactly that in the morning because that sounds absolutely perfect to me.
You put that, you have that for, let's say, a clear hour before you eat any calories, right? Or more. And when I'm on an intermittent fast, I make sure there's about a 12 to 14, 16 hour spread between my last set of calories and my first set of calories the next day. Not everybody wants to do that, and not everybody feels good when they do that, right? But for me, my body responds quite well. But even if you can just do that formula of 1, maybe for you it's 2 Boost and the 3 Green Energy in the morning with water, before you have coffee, before you eat anything, give everybody a good clear hour of that, within a couple of weeks, you'll really respond. I mean, it'll help out with temporary inflammation, which then means the body is better able to repair its tissues, right? There's just all kinds of this cascade of benefits because you kind of clean the system up, almost like if you use something to clean up the fuel and the excess and garbage of processing fuel in your automobile engine, right? You have that tune up, you clean it up, and all of a sudden things perform better. That's what happens in your body when you've got what I call an enzyme protocol. Combine that with some adaptogenic herbs, you're going to get stuff done. You're going to have a great day. All of a sudden I refer to you as, Lynn will be calling you super productive winder.
This is thrilling. And I love that. And I do that, sometimes intermittent fasting where I'll eat maybe 5 or 6 o'clock. And then now my habit I'm creating now is to start breakfast, and it's the shake. It's the super green juice and the organic super protein as breakfast. So would that actually help or hinder that process we were just talking about?
Oh, no. So, I just got through doing the transformation challenge with my daughter Sawyer, but it's, during that challenge period, I was super focused on it, but it's not uncommon that would be my breakfast or something along those lines. I'm careful about cooked or heated foods in the morning hours. Certainly try to stay away from animal proteins in the morning hours. I don't eat that much anyway, but I try to stay clear of that because of just the burden it places on the body. And I don't want to, start my day like if you're using.
This is better than the 3 eggs I used to eat in the morning.
For a lot of reasons. We don't even have a whole call to discuss
they were organic.
And I'm not wanting to create a war with the egg industry, so we'll just leave that there. Nothing wrong with eggs, right?
I feel better now, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, and anything in moderation is okay, but 3 eggs in the morning for life is not necessarily the best formula,
well,
right?
Teddy Roosevelt did 12 every morning, and he was fat.
Yeah. And he lived to a ripe old age of 62 or something?
60, yeah, something like that.
Yeah. We need to make sure we realize that's not the bar. 80 is not the bar. We're quite capable of hitting that 95 to 110 range, right? If we do it right.
Yeah, 135, whatever.
You might not know your name, but that's
Moses was a really nice guy.
So, with the shake, here's what happens. The protein, which is one of the more challenging things to digest in the organic super protein, right, under normal circumstances, is pre-digested. It's fermented. So that's going to be easy on the system. There's some collagen qualities to that mix of protein with the herbs themselves, right? So here's something for those that this matters. And I say this with some hesitation that you would think I'm focusing on you, but I'm not. But for most people, within a 2 to 4 week period of time, they would see an impact on their hair.
Hey.
The speed with which it grows, where it can grow.
Hey.
And the strength of
those 5 hairs are a little sensitive.
And the strength of the hair itself, but also in your nails. So places that are sensitive to the quality of the collagen, because that mix is designed to support collagen production.
You're telling me that in a month, My nails will be stronger. And because I've had this one issue, it's really fascinating you brought that up, because this one nail that's real flaky and weak, and that'd be a perfect test.
If you're diligent, about 5 days a week, maybe 6, having the organic super protein in the morning or at lunch, right? You find the place. Most people within 2 to 4 weeks are going to notice that difference, because the body's turnover of those cells is that quick. Now, age and other factors can impact how quickly this shows up, but
So
no
it's
question,
about
those
6 months.
building blocks. You're in better shape than that. But then it breaks down easily. It's got the enzyme, so your energy level is there. Then the green juice, people just really don't digest, right? All the 44 different ingredients, all that variety of super healthy material, and hundreds of phytochemicals that aren't just, fully identified, synergistically working with your body to alkalize it and give it those micronutrients. Put it with water, put it with a little coconut water. Hey, if you want a little more, sort of mouthfeel, maybe a little tablespoon of almond butter, right? Whatever you need that makes you feel good there. But you're going to notice a difference. Everything is going to feel better. And you'll find, now mark me down on this. If you do this with diligence, it's not long before your sugar cravings are greatly diminished.
I've already noticed. Not completely gone. I got a funny story. I did the 10-day challenge. And so, listen, you're going to love this. So the next day, I decided to treat myself and have some sugar. So Lynn and I had a little bowl of ice cream with some salted pecans chopped up, and a raspberry compote, this wonderful sauce. And it was so good. And my sleep that night was wrecked.
Yep.
My Apple Watch, I woke up the next day and looked at all my numbers. It was the worst it had been. That's not a treat. That's doing yourself in.
It really is. And if you've got to do that, then you want to do it in the mid to early afternoon, so that you've got time for that to kind of digest out while you're not trying to sleep.
Ate it and went to bed. Bad idea.
Tough formula right there.
Yeah, but I got a record of it.
You do,
I
right?
can prove how bad it is.
and a bold reminder.
And the watch don't lie.
No.
Idiot. It should have said idiot on the dial.
No, the Apple Watch is non-judgmental, not subjective.
It's brutally honest.
I wish Siri sometimes would cop an attitude. Right? That's the only thing I wish, is it just knew when to sometimes cop an attitude. It said, hey, I clearly said turn right. I don't know what's wrong. I'm quitting.
That's wonderful. So this is really inspiring. This stuff is just phenomenal. And the last thing I want to say about the drink, and I may have said this before, but I've tried a lot of green drinks over the years, and it's gag and maggot time. This stuff is delicious. It's so good. I don't know how to describe it. I look forward to it. I've never looked forward to a green drink ever. It's something I had to do, gag and maggot, get it down, get it done. I know it's good for me, so I'm yo-ho-heave-ho, but not this. This is look forward to quality.
The people we've worked with, and I kind of think of them as chefs, right? Making a recipe. They're good, right? We made it clear what we're looking for, and it took quite a few trials, but we got there, and I'm proud of it. I mean, we get a lot of positive feedback on the flavor, and it's good stuff. So let me just say this to everybody before we wrap up. If you're looking to make a difference, right, don't just think about this. Go get some. Go to the page. Try the boost, right? If it's not what we said, then return it, right? We have the money back guarantee stuff. But try this stuff. I mean, half the time for me, what I've discovered with people is they're just, I don't know about changing my routine or whatever happens to be. Come on, jump in. The water's warm, right? You'll find your day is more productive. Your significant other loves you more because you get more done, and your attitude is better.
Well, I got to tell you, when you told me that this stuff was going to be what it was, I knew better. This was not going to work. It was going to be just, well, you're right. And I have been proven And I am so glad because this has made such a huge difference. I'm almost not able to articulate all the changes that happened to me during that 10-day thing. It was worth its weight in gold. And I'm going to do it again often.
Well, look, I think you had said this to me before. So obviously the proof is in the pudding, but I think you said to me that if it was successful and you enjoyed it, that at the April 6th event in Vegas, that I'd see you by the pool in a Speedo. So, I think ultimately we'll all get to see.
This must not be working on memory because I don't remember that one. Look, we're trying not to scare the wildlife,
It's good to have a business we can have fun with, right?
I'm telling you, and I'm really looking forward to Las Vegas. That's going to be such a wonderful event.
Yeah. So, most of the time when we do things, they have to be on scale. And so to do something that's got an intimacy to it, a mastermind type thing, I'm excited myself. I always learn, with everybody else. And so I just enjoy it. It's almost like an unrequired continuing ed class.
Yeah. Wonderful. Spectacular conversation, sir.
Thank you, Winder.
Very appreciative.
Look forward to next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Doesn't get any better than that. It's fantastic.